The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to North Norfolk again, people, for episode number 3. Now, here's something a little bit extra to the episode you saw yesterday. We saw Trimingham yesterday. At the end of that episode, we talked a bit about RAF Trimingham and the radar station, did a bit of urban exploring, didn't we? Well, if you come into Mundesley, which is where I'm standing right now, you're faced with this street as you enter it on the right hand side. That's Collingwood Drive, and that is where the technical site for RAF Trimingham used to be many years ago. But we're not interested in that in this episode. We're instead interested in something else to do with Trimingham, and that would be Trimingham Beach. But to get to that, you have to go into the parish of Gimingham. Gimingham, Gimmers people. Today in North Norfolk we come to Gimingham as we start to move slightly further inland from the sea. Having said that, Gimingham Parish touches the coast, albeit very briefly, but its access to the sea does allow us the opportunity to fill in some more important gaps for Trimingham Beach. During the war, the shoreline in these parts was heavily defended with concrete fortifications and explosives. All along the cliff top and on the beach there were landmines. None remain today, thankfully, but Trimingham Beach has another relic to discover under its sands. Gimingham itself is a long way from the shore. It's just over 4 miles away from Cromer, and the main part of the village is laid out along one long straight road with an old school at one end and the village hall at the other. Between the two, there are some amazing features. Crossing the village is the River Mun, which used to power a watermill. The mill ceased operation a long time ago, but the mill pond is still here, and so too are some of its workings, which have been turned into quite an unusual and attractive local landmark. Further afield, Gimingham's boundaries take in a hospital originally built in 1898 as a tuberculosis sanatorium. It was one of the biggest ever built in the UK and went on to become the Diana Princess of Wales Addiction Treatment Centre. So, there's lots to cover in this one. Let's get cracking. Here we have Gimingham as it was in 1900. Not a great deal has altered since these times. The boundaries are still very similar, if not totally the same as they were here. Gimingham is a linear village stretching for almost a mile from north to south between its old school and the village hall. Gimingham's name is of Anglo-Saxon origin and derives from the Old English for the homestead of Gimmy or Gimmers people. In the Domesday Book, Gimingham is listed as a settlement of 76 households in the 100 of North Erpingham. In the Middle Ages, the village was the centre of the soak of Gimingham, which included most of the surrounding villages. It must have been a pretty important place at that time. In fact, the manor of Gimingham was well known on account of an ancient rhyme which goes as follows. Gimingham, Trimingham, Knapton and Trunch, with Northreps and Southreps lie all of a bunch. In the medieval period, a hall was built and owned by the Duchy of Lancaster and was at one point the residence of John of Gaunt. The hall burned down in 1700 and is now a set of private dwellings. In 1805, a workhouse was built in Gimingham, but was later closed in 1851. So what was here at the turn of the 20th century then? Let's have a look. On this map, you can see the site of the old hall to the left. In the village itself, there was a church, and that's still there. Also still standing is the school at the northern end, albeit not in use any longer. To the south, a parochial room is marked. That's what would become the modern village hall. In the centre of the village, you can also see a corn mill, a key feature of Gimingham since Doomsday. What's there now is not that old. In fact, it was only built in 1981. So here's how we're going to walk through this one. We'll begin on Trimingham Beach in the north before heading into the village and parking in the southern reaches, these days dominated by some newer housing estates. Our first stop will be the playing field before we turn north. And essentially it'll just be a case of following the main street, passing the village hall, the church and the site of the old corn mill. Beyond those, we'll then go and find the school before turning around via these lanes at the top and heading back from whence we came. Pretty simple stuff. To end the episode though, we'll need to take a drive to the east because Gimingham's boundaries also take in the site of the former Diana Princess of Wales Addiction Treatment Centre, which began its life in 1898 as a tuberculosis sanatorium. Let's get things going with the gorgeous Trimingham Beach. Note Trimingham Beach, not Gimingham Beach. Even though we are in Gimingham here, Trimingham Beach extends this far east and we're actually at the safest spot here where you can access it. There are reasons for that. All along the coast, access to Trimingham Beach has become very difficult over the years. There used to be several tracks which provided ways to get to it, but they needed to be renewed every time there was a cliff fall or erosion. That stopped though when landmines were sown. This beach was a minefield in the war. They were laid to protect RAF Trimingham and the radar site where the golf ball used to be. There were also mines all along the cliff tops. Don't worry though, you are quite safe on this beach these days. There are no mines here today. The wartime activity here stopped all the fishing activity which had been prevalent here for several centuries. There was a gangway, a simple dirt track leading to the beach, which the fishermen used. Today, we know that gangway as Vale Road, and it remains the best way to the beach. When the MOD came along, the gangway was requisitioned and the cliff tops and cliffs were sown with the landmines. No one, therefore, was allowed to use the beach access. This saw the breakup of the fishing community in the village, along with the fishermen's former way of life. Before the war, fishermen sent their catches to the Great Yarmouth Fish Market via the railway, gaining it a nickname, the Crab and Winkle Line. Fishing activity began again in the early 1970s. In particular, there was a boom in crab fishing again, resulting in the gangway being tarmacked. That was just after the mine clearing operations, which took 20 years from 1946 until 1966, when the beach and the cliffs were finally declared safe for the public to use. Mines are not a relic you'll find on this beach anymore, but you will find something that is, if you know where to go. Trimingham Beach has the remains of a disused railway track. Speculation has raged online about why this is here, and for several years it's been an unsolved mystery. A lot of it is buried under the sand, but some sections are exposed. You can even see wheels from its former wagons. Some say the track was laid during World War II to assist with the construction of concrete fortifications, but others disagree. Others claim it was used after the war to take the landmines further down the beach for controlled detonation. So when exactly and why exactly was this track laid? Well, the answer is actually nothing to do with the war. The tracks were built in 1973 to support the building of the coast's protection structures, i.e. the timber revetments which go along the cliffs and the groins which stretch out into the North Sea. Because Trimingham Beach is a really remote location and there aren't any nearby beach accesses thanks to cliff erosion, the tracks were designed to move things around like concrete, steel sheet piles and timber. It all makes perfect sense when you think about it that way. Much of the track was destroyed by cliff falls during construction and was covered by eroded materials. This is why workers physically couldn't get to the tracks to remove them when they'd done their job. Over the years, the material that covered them has washed away though, and has left them partially exposed. The abandoned railway tracks have become something of a tourist attraction. There have been suggestions that they should be removed to a museum, but thankfully the council have never wanted to move them, and so they remain as a fascinating piece of Trimingham heritage. I have to say, people, there's nothing quite like the sound of the waves lapping the shore. And if you walk down Vale Road towards Trimingham Beach, it's literally all you can hear in the background. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. This is a special place, people. It really is. Perfectly safe these days. no landmines, and nothing sinister. No railway, it's been covered over by the sand these days. Just leaves Trimingham Beach as a really peaceful, calm place with just the sound of the waves in the background. It's lovely. But of course these waves are eroding these cliffs. Big problem, but it's not cost effective to maintain sea defences these days, as we learned yesterday. Now that's pretty much it for Trimingham Beach and for the coastline in this North Norfolk run, because now we're going to start and head a bit further inland, and our first job is to get ourselves to Gimingham village, which this actually falls within. Trimingham Beach is part of Gimingham Parish. Now the village is a lot different to what we've so far seen in North Norfolk, as you're about to see. It has a river running through it, and on the course of that river there used to be a watermill. It's kind of Gimingham's biggest feature, shall we say, these days. Gimingham's southernmost sections aren't terribly interesting, if I'm honest here. All the good stuff is generally in the middle of the place. That said, the fact a village has a playing field is always a good thing in my book, so here's that to start this walk off. Let's head to the village hall. Gimingham Village Hall was built in 1896 by a baronet, Sir Thomas Fowell Buxton. It cost about £200 to do so, which at that time was a tidy little sum. It was built as a parochial room, and mainly it was used by the C of E Men's Society and by Methodists for religious services. In the early 1930s, the hall was given by Sir Thomas's son, Rodney Buxton, to the church, in trust for the village. In 1976 it was sold to the parish council for a nominal sum of £5, and today it's run like any other village hall by a committee of people that live in Gimingham itself. It's used for many local and communal events, but also available for hire for private ones. Given it's only a short stroll from Gimingham Church, it makes an ideal spot for wedding receptions. From a practical standpoint, it has its own catering facilities and holds a licence for playing music. And so Nikki is doing the honours on Gimingham's notice board here. Let's get this marked off.
True TBI fashion.
Yes, indeed. Bit of blue tack on the notice board. TVI has been to Gimingham. Gimingham's parish church is dedicated to All Saints, and ecclesiastically it's been part of the Trunch group since 1965. There was an earlier church on the site of the present one. Signs of early Anglo-Saxon coins can be seen in the east wall of the present chancel, dating from the early 14th century. Set in a land of churches which are giants in size and stars in the ecclesiological firmament, All Saints is a fairly modest, mostly perpendicular church. The nave dates from the 15th century and was re-roofed in around 1950. The battlemented tower is also 15th century. Some buttresses and arches are of brick construction, but mostly the church is almost entirely built from unnapped flint, although there are some squared flints in the entrance porch. That has 2 stories and was incorporated into a much older, original porch. The room on the first floor is known as a parvis. It was used in the past by priests who had travelled some distance to get here. It may also have been used in the past as part of wedding services, with guests waiting there whilst the bride and groom exchanged their vows in the porch itself. The belfry here holds a ring of 5 bells. The original 3 bells were rehung and retuned in 1990. In 1992 they were augmented to 5 by the addition of 2 lighter ones. The additionals were cast in 1889 by Mears and Steinbank and were relocated here from Gosport on the south coast. Okay, so we've just had a little bit of an explore of the churchyard, trying to find a pair of graves, and we couldn't find them until Nikki pulled out a phone and found there's an extension to the churchyard here in Gimingham, and this is said extension. There's Nikki fussing a local cat, as you can see. Are you the guardian of this cemetery, sir? Maybe, or madam, yes indeed. So here's the cemetery extension. Far more modern graves in here than you'll find in the actual churchyard, and there's still plenty of space over there as well for some new ones. Now, within these modern graves, there are 2 right here. These are the 2 we were looking for. Now, yes, I was looking for them. Now, remember these 2 names because they'll become important in Friday's episode. On the left, we have Claughton Pellew Harvey, and on the right, we have Emma Marie Pellew Harvey, who's otherwise known as Ketchy Tennant. These 2 were artists, and I'll fill in a bit more about these when we get to the village they lived in. Just over halfway now up the main street, the River Mun crosses the road. The Mun, which is alternatively known as Mundesley Beck, is a minor river whose source is in the parish of Northreps, not too far away from Gimingham. It runs into the North Sea via Mundesley. At Gimingham, the river flows into a series of mill ponds. These ponds once fed a watermill whose dam held back a 20-acre broad that used to be fed by the river. There's been a mill at this location since the time of the Domesday Book, although the one here now isn't quite that old. Gimingham's watermill worked in conjunction with a post mill powered by wind. This setup continued until 1877. Its original water wheel was later supplemented by steam, before being replaced by a turbine in 1912 and later by diesel engines. The water, though, was still used for cooling them. Into the 20th century and the post mill disappeared, but the watermill continued for several more decades. Gimingham milled animal feedstuffs until 1976 when it closed down. It remained empty for a while afterwards before being completely destroyed by a fire in 1979. And so the mill you see now is a rebuilding, but it never milled anything. It was put back together in 1981 by the Gotts family as a residence, but they kept the former wheel pit and the mill pond. That's now an attraction, especially for anglers. Bream, carp, tench and roach can all be caught in its waters. And so here we have what is perhaps one of the most unusual pieces of street furniture you will ever see anywhere in the UK. This is the old diesel engine, which provided power to the old mill for many years. The mill may have gone, but this serves as a brilliant reminder of its time. The engine has been perfectly preserved and sits under a special roadside canopy for all to see. Built by Crossley of Manchester, the engine ran the mill's machinery via a belt drive. Now, I'm no technical or mechanical genius, but I can certainly appreciate something like this. Pretty much throughout this whole walk, we've been distracted by something in the sky. It's been making quite a loud noise. We reckon it's some kind of military aircraft that's maybe doing some exercise over the North Sea, but we can't see it, so we can't sort of determine what it is, really, can we?
No, well, I've seen it, but what I've seen is tiny.
Very small.
You're so way, for me, as a complete amateur, way out of my
Expertise?
to see what it is from that distance. It's just not possible.
You know what? It's probably par for the course around here. These military aircraft probably fly around here all the time.
Well, when we were in Sandringham, recently, and it was exactly the same there.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, from where we are, we're not used to it.
No. Gimingham has had a population of just over 300 for about 2 centuries, large enough to sustain its own school. For the most part, the children of the village would have been educated at this school, built in 1834 during the incumbency of the Reverend Ralph Blakelock. He was the rector here until 1892, so he certainly stuck around. During part of his time, he was also the Archdeacon of Norfolk, and has often been described as the father of the allotment system. There's one for the fans. Some allotments still bear his name as well, apparently. Gimingham's school was a well-respected building and often took on children from the surrounding villages. Trunch, the village to the south, had a school that was often overcrowded in the early 1880s, and so many children came here instead. They had to walk here, though. It wasn't an easy task. Information about the old school here is otherwise very sparse, and so a detailed account of its history can't be accurately pieced together. I have no idea when it closed, but today this is a private house, and that's what Gimingham is mainly made up of now at this northern end. Okay, so we're just making our way back to the car now. We've stopped outside the church just for a few minutes in this sort of leafy glade that surrounds it.
Considering that tomorrow it's October the 1st, it's really quite pleasant. It's not too hot and not too cold. So, you know, like in the summer, if we're out and about, we try and find a shady spot like this.
Yeah.
Here, it actually didn't matter whether we were in shade or not, did it?
Not really, no.
Not today.
Not today.
The only thing is when we've been out and about and walking up and down, this flipping aircraft with its sonic boom has just been ridiculous.
It's gone now.
Yeah, but it'll be back in a minute. Go on, what were you saying?
Okay, so I was saying basically we've stopped here in this little leafy glade for 5 minutes, and then we'll pick up the car and we'll head sort of eastwards towards Mundesley, but not quite into Mundesley, even though the last landmark to see, technically speaking, belongs kind of to Mundesley. You'll understand that in a moment. It's an old tuberculosis sanatorium which became a drug and addiction centre, and it's still a hospital today, I believe.
Yeah, but you forgot to mention a bit about the drug and addiction centre, who it was named for.
Ah, well, you'll find out in a moment.
Yeah.
In 1898, one of the largest tuberculosis sanatoriums in all of Britain was built, right here in Norfolk. It sits in the far eastern reaches of Gimingham's boundaries, almost in Mundesley. It later evolved into a hospital and was finally closed in 1992. Originally known as Mundesley Sanatorium, it was built in prefabricated timber sections by Boulton and Paul Limited. It was the first large centre in England that had been specifically built for open-air treatment of tuberculosis, but it was a private hospital, and so only really any good to the wealthy. It was purposely built on the southern slope of a hill to protect it from the prevailing winds, whilst to the south there was an expanse of countryside that had a view extending for several miles. All the bedrooms faced south. There were 15, 12 on the upper floor and 3 on the ground floor. All of its corners were rounded to prevent dust accumulation. Fresh air formed an important part of the treatment for tuberculosis, with many hospitals using open windows and balconies. Before the Industrial Revolution, folklore often associated tuberculosis with vampires, believe it or not. The legend attached to the disease goes that if one member of the family died from it, other infected members would lose their health slowly. People believed this was caused by the original person with TB draining the life from the others. Isn't folklore just a wonderful thing at times? Mundesley promoted itself as a health resort of sorts where tuberculosis sufferers could rest and recuperate alongside receiving treatment. As such, it had its own golf course, established by its founder Dr. F.W. Burton Fanning, who himself was an avid golfer. By the 1950s, convalescent treatment for the disease was deemed unnecessary, and so in 1957 the sanatorium was officially adopted by the NHS with the backing of the East Anglian Regional Hospital Board. At the time of its closure in 1992, it was in use as a rehabilitation unit. After falling into disrepair, the building was purchased by Adapt Limited and underwent a huge refurbishment in 1997. It was reopened as the Diana, Princess of Wales Treatment Centre for drug and alcohol problems. It took around £1 million and 34 weeks to refurbish this massive site. Due to a lack of funding, however, administrators were called in during summer 2008 and the clinic was closed in 2009. However, it remains operational because these days it's the Southern Hill Hospital. It cares for people with long-term mental health issues, supporting them in their journey to recovery. That was an interesting little village, that. It's not every day you come across a landmark like the engine, literally in the middle of the street, is it? You've just got to love villages like this. The next one's got more than you might think too. For starters, it had a brewery once. See you tomorrow. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.